What if Ned Stark's honor wasn't just a trait, but a curse? A silent, unforgiving shadow that bled into the bones of every Stark that followed him. Not a virtue, but a legacy that demanded sacrifice, betrayal, and death. The North whispered of wolves with too much heart and not enough cunning. And somewhere deep in Winterfell, long before Robert Baratheon ever rode through its gates, that curse stirred once more. The moment Ned Stark chose duty over desire, honesty over advantage, he unknowingly chained his bloodline to an ancient fate, one that didn't care for justice or mercy. His children would carry it. His decisions would echo not in glory but in tragedy. And if things had unfolded just slightly differently, if his choices had infected the very souls of his children more deeply, Westeros would have suffered a storm colder than the long night. The timeline diverges not at his death, but at the moment of his most dangerous decision, telling Jon Snow he was a bastard. In this version, he doesn't lie. He doesn't hide Jon's parentage. Instead, his curse compels him to tell the truth. From the moment Jon can understand, Ned tells him, gently but clearly, "You are not my son. You are the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, the rightful heir to the Iron Throne." Little did he know that this act of honor would ignite a war decades before. Daenerys ever set sail, Jon grows up. Different, conflicted, loved, but distant. He trains like a Stark, but dreams like a Targaryen. The North senses he doesn't fully belong, and worse, they fear what he represents. A Targaryen under their roof. A king in the making, and Catelyn Stark. Her hatred is no longer silent. It's a dagger she wields in daylight. Her fury toward Jon poisons the air. Not just jealousy of Ned's past, but fear. Fear that Jon could threaten her children's future. That Robb's claim could be erased by a boy with dragon blood. Robb, influenced by his mother but still carrying the Stark curse, becomes torn. He wants to love Jon, but honor won't let him ignore the law, the bloodlines, the implications. Sansa, trained in the ways of courts and alliances, begins whispering doubts. What if the South learns of him? What if Cersei sees him as a threat? Meanwhile, Jon becomes obsessed with history. Dragons, Valyria, the Mad King. He reads about Aerys too and wonders, will they see me as him? Ned watches his son drift, trapped between loyalty to the North and curiosity about his real blood. Then comes the day Robert arrives in Winterfell. But instead of just asking Ned to be Hand of the King, he recognizes Jon immediately. The silver in his eyes, the resemblance to Lyanna. Robert freezes. Ned confirms it. He's her son. Robert nearly draws his sword on instinct, remembering Rhaegar. But he stops. He sees Ned's face. He sees Lyanna's. And suddenly the game changes. Robert doesn't kill Jon, he makes him a weapon. "You will come with us to King's Landing," he says. "You'll learn the ways of the court. If dragons return, I want one on our side." Ned refuses. Honor demands Jon stay in the North. But Jon himself? He says yes, and just like that, the wolf leaves the woods. Direct address. Wait, did you feel that? That moment right there changed everything. Jon Snow leaves Winterfell not as a bastard, but as a Targaryen. And if you think Cersei's gonna let that slide, you're not ready for what's coming. The moment they arrive in King's Landing, tensions explode. Jon meets Joffrey, the future lion versus the hidden dragon. They despise each other instantly. Jon's calm, brooding nature makes Joffrey feel small. The king senses it too. How the realm might prefer Jon to Joffrey, and Cersei. Oh, she's not blind. She sees the threat, she whispers in Robert's ear. Why keep the boy here? He's a Targaryen. He's dangerous. What if he starts a rebellion? But Robert, haunted by Lyanna's ghost, refuses to harm him. He sees this as redemption. Let him be a knight, Robert says. Let him earn his place. And so Jon begins training in the Red Keep, under Barristan Selmy, under Sandor Clegane. Every sword stroke feeds the fire in him. Every insult from the Lannisters fans it. Meanwhile, in Winterfell, the curse spreads. Robb grows colder. His honor demands he protect the North, but whispers haunt him. What if Jon returns not as a brother, but as a king? Arya wants to follow Jon. She sees in him freedom, rebellion, purpose. Sansa sees a rival. Bran sees visions. And Catelyn? She prays, but the gods don't answer. Back in King's Landing, Jon witnesses the rot, the lies, the games. Varys takes interest in him. Littlefinger offers false friendship. Ned arrives as Hand, but he's already lost control of his son's path. Jon meets Daenerys not in Meereen, not across the sea, but in the Red Keep's forbidden chambers. Direct address. Okay. Pause. Imagine this. Daenerys and Jon meet as teenagers, not enemies, not lovers, but rivals raised in opposite ends of chaos. And if you think they'll get along, just wait. Daenerys is brought in secret, a gift to Robert, courtesy of Illyrio and a nervous Viserys who hopes the king will kill her. But Robert doesn't. He sees her, sees the resemblance to Rhaella, and keeps her locked away. Jon finds her, in the Godswood behind the Red Keep, alone, silent. "You're the dragon girl," he says, "and you're the Stark who thinks he's a Targaryen," she replies. "They're mirrors, two halves of a broken dynasty, and something ancient stirs when they speak. Not romance, not yet. Something deeper, a hunger." Robert dies faster this time. His heart gives out, not to wine or pigs, but to stress, betrayal, and the growing fear that his kingdom is about to burn. And when he dies, chaos erupts. Cersei crowns Joffrey. Ned resists. But this time he doesn't send Jon away. He names Jon as his legal heir in a final act of desperate honor. King's Landing splits. Half the guard supports Joffrey. Half bows to Jon. The Iron Throne bleeds before it burns. Direct address. Wait, did Ned Stark just name Jon Snow king? Yep. And that, my friend, is where everything starts to collapse. Because you thought the War of the Five Kings was messy? Try the War of the Bastard Kings. Sansa is taken hostage. Arya vanishes. Robb marches south not to save his father, but to stop his brother. The North breaks. The South riots. Daenerys escapes, and Jon? He stands in the Red Keep staring at the throne, torn between the wolf and the dragon. Between honor and ambition. But little does he know winter has already begun to march. Little does he know winter has already begun to march. Snow was falling on King's Landing. Not the gentle kind that blanketed Winterfell in silence, but sharp, biting flakes that had no business this far south. The people of the capital didn't understand it. They looked to the skies like they were cursed. And maybe they were, because for the first time in 300 years, two Targaryens walked freely in the Red Keep, and neither wanted the other alive. Jon stood at the shattered steps of the throne room, sword on his back, silence in his heart. His father's last words rang like a funeral bell. "You are the heir. If they deny it, remind them of your name." That name had cursed him. It had lifted him up and pulled everyone around him into the grave. And above the Iron Throne, blasted by wildfire, cracked by rebellion, stood Joffrey Baratheon with blood still fresh on his crown. "You kneel or you die, Snow," he spat. "Even your dead father would beg if he saw what I have behind me." The doors opened, Lannister gold. Dozens of knights, crossbows, archers, the mountain. Cersei dressed in black, silent and unblinking. Jon didn't move. "I am the son of Rhaegar Targaryen," he said. "I kneel to no usurper." Behind him, Daenerys watched from the shadows of the hall. She wasn't a queen, not yet. Not ever if Jon had his way. But she had seen enough of Jon's fire to know what was coming. And for the first time, she wasn't sure she wanted to stop it. Direct address. "Okay, you're not ready. You thought this would be a showdown. This isn't just a war for the throne. This is a family execution. A civil war where the blood spilled carries the same name. And Jon Snow? He's about to become the butcher Westeros never saw coming." The Lannisters struck first. Joffrey gave the signal, expecting Jon to fall. But Jon didn't just fight. He commanded. The City Watch, half of it already soured by Lannister arrogance, turned their blades. Davos Seaworth, smuggled into the city days ago by Ned's final whisper, struck the first killing blow. In moments, the throne room turned red. Jon faced Joffrey at the base of the throne. He didn't speak, didn't warn him, didn't honor him with a duel. He ran him through one clean stroke. No honor, no glory. Just silence. Joffrey died screaming, not like a king, but like a boy who'd never deserved a crown. Cersei's scream was worse than wildfire. She vanished in the chaos. The mountain carved through guards like meat, but even he couldn't stop the wave. Lannister banners burned. Ravens flew. The world shifted. The North heard the cry first. Robb Stark was already halfway to the Twins, his army uncertain, his mind darker than it had ever been. He thought he was marching south to save Sansa, to avenge Ned. But now, he was marching to kill his own brother. Jon had broken the pact. The unspoken bond between wolves. The Stark honor that demanded restraint, humility, sacrifice. But Jon had chosen power. Whether he wanted it or not, the curse was no longer quiet. It screamed through every decision. Arya, hidden in the gutters of King's Landing, watched it unfold. Her list grew longer. her hatred deeper. She didn't see a king when Jon took the throne. She saw a usurper. Direct address. Did you feel that shift? Jon killed Joffrey, and instead of being a hero, he just became another piece of the throne. The Stark curse doesn't make you good. It makes you do the right thing, even when it destroys you. And Jon's about to find out what it costs to be righteous in a kingdom built on lies. Back in Winterfell, Bran's dreams grew violent. He saw fire in the crypts, snow melting in pools of blood, wolves eating wolves. He screamed Lyanna's name and saw her son wearing a crown of swords. Maester Luwin wrote letters, to the wall, to Dragonstone, to Old Town. No answer came. Ravens returned with their throats slit, wings scorched. The realm was breaking. Meanwhile, Daenerys stood on a balcony, watching Jon try to hold a kingdom that didn't want to be held. Varys offered her wine. Tyrion watched with quiet fear. She'll rise against him, Tyrion whispered. Who? Asked Varys. Every Stark that's still breathing, and they were Sansa. Paraded through the streets like a traitor's daughter. Was rescued in the chaos by Yoren and the remnants of the Brotherhood without banners. Arya vanished into the streets. Whispers said a shadow with a blade had begun killing Lannister loyalists in the alleys. They called her the Ghost of the North. Robb made camp in the Riverlands, and Jon? He sat alone in the Red Keep, watching the snow fall through shattered glass. He missed Winterfell. He missed Ghost. He missed being nothing, but he could never go back. Not after what he'd done. Direct address. Hey, real quick, do you see what's happening? This isn't a hero's rise. This is a soul collapse in slow motion. Jon Snow didn't choose the throne, he fell into it. And the moment he did, everyone he loved started planning his downfall. Trust me, what's coming next is worse than the Red Wedding. Robb sent no raven. He came with steel. House Stark, House Tully, remnants of Baratheon loyalists, all beneath the direwolf banner. He didn't march on King's Landing yet. He marched on Harrenhal, burned it. Took it as a staging ground, but he left a message pinned to a corpse at the gates. A crown built on kin's blood will be drowned in wolf's fire. The North declared independence again. But this time it wasn't against the Lannisters. It was against Jon Snow. Bran whispered to the godswood, trying to understand. Trying to speak to the old gods, but he didn't hear answers. Only screams. The curse wasn't just Ned's anymore. It had passed into all of them. Direct address. Let's pause here, because now we're in unknown territory. Jon Snow, King of the Seven Kingdoms. Robb Stark, King of the North. And the war we're heading into? It's not about gold or dragons or thrones. It's a war between wolves. It's a war between wolves. Smoke poured out of the Riverlands. Villages burned. Not by Lannister hands, but by Northerners too angry to wait for orders. This wasn't honor anymore. It was vengeance. Robb Stark had stopped being a boy marching for justice. Now he was a king chasing a shadow wearing his brother's face. Jon's name no longer meant safety. It meant betrayal. It meant war. The bards stopped singing of the bastard who rose. They sang of the wolf who wore a dragon's skin and burned his pack to sit alone on a throne of ash. And in the heart of King's Landing, Jon watched it all unravel. He had tried. Gods know he had tried. He wrote to Robb, to Bran, to Sansa. Letters of apology, of reason, of desperation. Not a single raven came back. He ruled in silence. Daenerys had vanished from the Red Keep after the chaos. Some said she fled across the sea. Others whispered she was plotting, gathering loyalists in the shadows. Varys had gone quiet. Tyrion drank more. Sir Davos pleaded with Jon to go north, to speak to Robb in person. But Jon knew better. Honor had killed his father. It would kill them all. Direct address. And now here's where it really gets insane. Jon Snow thinks he can still fix this. That if he plays the game better, smarter, quieter, he can hold the throne and bring peace. But what he doesn't know is that his siblings don't want peace. They want justice. And they're not coming to talk. Arya reached Harrenhal first. She didn't announce herself. She didn't wear a banner. She came in the night and slit a dozen Lannister throats while they slept in the ruins. Then she walked straight into Robb's war tent, placed her dagger on his map and said only one thing. He forgot who we are. Robb looked into her eyes and saw it. She didn't come back for home or for him. She came back to end the one who'd broken their father's name, Jon Snow. At the same time, Sansa moved like smoke through the veil. Littlefinger was dead in this timeline. killed by Arya's blade weeks after the Red Keep fell, but his network remained. And Sansa had learned from him. She didn't send armies. She sent whispers. By the end of a moon's turn, half of the Southern Lords were questioning Jon's bloodline, claiming his Targaryen madness made him unfit. Some said he had executed Joffrey without trial. Others claimed he held Daenerys prisoner in the catacombs. He didn't. She had left willingly, but only because she'd seen what the Iron Throne had turned Jon into. Cold, calculating, empty, and far north. The wall stood broken. The Night's Watch scattered. Bran Stark had crossed beyond it, chasing dreams of a three-eyed raven, but what he found wasn't visions. It was the dead. Direct address. Oh my God, you forgot about the Night King, didn't you? Yeah, while the Starks burn each other down in the south, the real threat wakes up in the north. And Bran, he's the only one who sees it. But guess what? No one's listening. Back in the capital, Jon started preparing for the siege. He knew Robb was coming. Every raven, every spy, every refugee from the Riverlands brought the same story. The North will not kneel to the Dragon Wolf. Davos begged him to surrender the throne. Tyrion urged him to marry. Sansa, Daenerys, anyone to unify the realm. But Jon stayed silent. He had taken the throne only because Ned Stark's dying breath forced him to, and now he would not leave it. Not until he bled for it. Inside the Red Keep, Arya had infiltrated again. She moved like a shadow, ghosting through guards, through secret tunnels. She reached Jon's chambers before anyone even knew she was in the city. And when he turned and saw her standing there, her dagger already drawn, he didn't flinch. "I knew you'd come," he said. "You always knew how to make the wrong choice," she replied. "You think I wanted this?" He snapped. "You think I killed Joffrey because I wanted the throne?" "You didn't stop it either," she said. "You became the thing Father died to stop." He didn't defend himself. He just sat down. "Then kill me," he said, "if you think that will fix this." Arya walked forward, blade ready, but she didn't strike. "I'm not your executioner," she whispered. "That honor belongs to Robb," and she vanished. Direct address, wait, what? Arya literally had the chance. She was right there. But she left Jon alive. Why? Because for her, this war isn't about revenge anymore. It's about truth. And if you think the North will stop because Jon sat down and waited to die, oh no. The wolves are already here. The siege began at dawn. Robb Stark stood before the gates of King's Landing with 40,000 men. Direwolves howled. Banners burned. Catapults were loaded. Jon stood atop the battlements. No crown, no cloak. Just Longclaw in his hand and ghosts in his eyes. The people of King's Landing didn't cheer. They didn't scream. They just watched, broken by years of war. Tired of kings and blood, Daenerys returned. Not on a ship, not with fire, but with the remains of Drogon, ashes, and bones carried by unsullied deserters who had followed her back. She didn't go to Jon, she went to Robb, and what she said changed everything. "He'll never stop fighting. You have to end it. And I'll help." Robb hesitated. He looked at her and saw the fury of her blood, the madness of the Targaryens. But he also saw something else. A woman who'd already lost everything, just like him, and so, together, they launched the final assault. Jon fought like a wolf, silent, deadly, brutal. He took down 10 men alone at the gates. His army crumbled. Lannister loyalists fled. Tyrion surrendered. But Jon didn't. He didn't run. Didn't beg. He walked through the flames of the Red Keep as it collapsed around him and waited. Robb found him in the throne room. The Iron Throne was gone, melted by wildfire. Shattered by war, nothing remained but ash. Jon stood in the center, and Robb raised his sword. Direct address. "This is it. This is the moment you waited for. 2 brothers. 2 kings. 1 throne already destroyed. 1 curse that began with Ned Stark and ends in this room. And trust me, it's not going to end the way you think." Robb swung, Jon blocked. They fought like wolves in a cage. Not just swords, but screams, regret, memories, everything they had lost. Every time they had chosen honor. Every time it had failed them. Jon fell first, cut across the ribs. Blood poured. He dropped to one knee. Robb stood over him, panting. "Why?" he asked. "Why didn't you come home?" Jon looked up, tears in his eyes. "Because there's nothing left of home," and Robb, with a roar, drove the blade not into Jon, but into the stone beside him and collapsed, crying. They were both broken, and the North? The North would bury them both if they didn't rise. Direct address, okay, stop, just breathe. That was part 3. And if you thought it hurt now, wait till Bran comes back with a message from beyond the wall. The Night King is walking, and guess who's not ready? Everyone. If you want the War of the Wolves to turn into the war for all of Westeros, you know what to do. Turn into the war for all of Westeros, you know what to do. The wall was no more, not shattered by giants, not melted by dragons, but consumed, eaten by silence, frost, and the weight of everything the realm chose to ignore. Bran Stark stood alone on the cold edge where Castle Black used to be, eyes rolled back, mouth open, breath trembling in the stillness. Ravens circled above him in patterns only he understood. His feet were buried in snow, but he didn't shiver. He'd seen it, the dead were marching. But this time they weren't heading south, they were waiting. Direct address. Okay, forget everything you know. This isn't the Night King you remember. This version of him, he's not just a villain, he's patient. He's watching the South destroy itself, and when the wolves are done tearing each other apart, he'll come. Not to fight, to claim. Back in King's Landing, the Red Keep was rubble. The Iron Throne lay buried under stone and soot. Robb sat with his head in his hands, blood from Jon still wet on his armor, not because he'd killed his brother, but because he hadn't. Jon was alive. Just barely. He lay on a bed of ashen fur, tended to by Samwell Tarly, who had arrived too late to stop the war, but just in time to bear witness to its fallout. "You should have let me die," Jon whispered. "You always say that," Sam said, "but somehow you keep breathing." Robb hadn't spoken to Jon since the duel. He hadn't declared him forgiven or defeated. He just sat in silence, watching the city crumble. Sansa arrived 2 days later, and she brought no army, just questions. "You crowned yourself in the ruins of our father's name," she told Robb. "You warred with your own blood. And now you sit here like you won something." Robb looked up, eyes hollow. "I didn't win. I just stopped losing." Sansa stared at the pile of melted steel where the throne once stood. "And who rules now?" "Direct address, yeah, that's the real question. No throne, no king, just ashes. And into that vacuum, darkness. Because while the realm tries to figure out who should lead, they forgot to ask the better question. Who's still left to save?" Bran sent a raven one sentence. No signature. "The dead do not march, they wait. And soon they will not need to." No one understood what it meant. No one except Jon. As he healed, he started dreaming again. Of the wall not broken, but empty. Of shadows with blue eyes. Their voices that sounded like Lyanna, like Benjen, like Ned, calling from the snow. He told Sam. Sam said nothing, because Sam already knew. He'd seen the old scrolls in Old Town. The ones too worn to translate. One line had stayed with him. "When wolves slay wolves, the long night shall not come. It shall be welcomed." Daenerys returned again, this time with ships. Not armies, just survivors. Essosi exiles, red priests, broken men. They followed her not as queen, but as witness. She had seen what fire could not destroy. "Will not rule what is already lost," she told Robb and Sansa. "But I will not kneel to ghosts." Jon finally rose from his bed, and for the first time since taking the throne, he walked away from it. He found Bran, not beyond the wall, but beneath Winterfell, in the crypts. Bran sat cross-legged beneath their father's statue, hands twitching, eyes pale. "I saw it," he said as Jon approached. "Saw what?" "The final truth." "What truth?" "That we are not cursed by honor," Bran whispered. "We are consumed by it," Jon knelt. "Tell me what you saw." Bran blinked, and the world changed. Direct address. Okay, this is it. This is where everything flips. Because up until now we thought Ned Stark's honor was a burden, a flaw. But what Bran sees next, it's something way darker. What if Ned's honor wasn't just a trait? What if it was placed there? In Bran's vision, the old gods speak, but they are not gentle. They are not wise, they are angry, ancient, forgotten things with bark for skin and ice in their veins. They had once ruled the north. Long before men came with their swords and their crowns, they had chosen the first men not to survive, but to serve, and they had created the Starks not as protectors, but as anchors. Each Stark was a seal, a gate, a piece of an ancient magic, holding something in place beyond the wall. And Ned was the last full link. When he died, and when his children began to fight each other, the seals weakened. The dead didn't need to march, because the prison was already cracking. Jon recoiled from the vision. We have to stop it. Bran nodded. We can't. Why? Bran looked up, eyes wet with snow and silence. Because we are the Locks. And if we die, the door opens. Robb, Sansa, Arya, all of them. Every Stark death wasn't just tragedy. It was a release. And Jon realized the war wasn't between kings. It was between time. Between the world that was, and the world that had been buried beneath snow for 10,000 years. Direct address. You're still with me. Good, because here comes the most terrifying twist of all. The long night wasn't just a season. It was a sentence. And every Stark death is a key turning in the lock. Jon ran from the crypts. From Bran, from Winterfell. He needed answers, desperately, and he found them not in books but in fire. He returned to Dragonstone, alone, and in the dead of night. He walked into the old throne room and lit the last remaining pile of obsidian with wildfire. Daenerys followed him. You're not here to make weapons, she said. No. Then why? Jon turned. To burn my name out of the world, and he stepped into the flame, but it didn't burn him because fire remembers its own. Daenerys screamed. But when the flames cleared, Jon stood taller. Not healed, not crowned, changed. Fire no longer rejected him, and snow no longer chilled him. He was no longer a Stark, no longer a Targaryen. He was something else. The last lock, and the key. Direct address. Okay, now we're way past anything you expected. Jon's not a king anymore. He's not even just a man. He's become the final piece in an ancient prophecy no one even knew existed. And what comes next? It's not politics. It's not revenge. It's survival. Because now the Night King has waited long enough. The wall is gone, the world is crumbling, and all that stands between Westeros and extinction is a man who no longer knows if he's meant to save the realm or end it. Save the realm or end it. The frost did not come in storms. It came in stillness. No howling winds. No crashing snow. No war horns, just silence, and with it, death. The North had always known cold. But this was different. The lakes froze from the inside. Wolves starved in the woods. Children stopped crying in their sleep, their breath turning to mist that never returned. White Walkers didn't march as men imagined. They spread like disease, like memory, like vengeance forgotten for 10,000 years. And at their front he stood, the Night King, but not the one you remember. This one was awake. This one remembered, because the seals had broken. The old gods had been betrayed. And the last of the Stark blood was already unraveling. Direct address, you feel that? That's the chill crawling up your spine. Because everything we thought we knew about the Night King, about the wall, about the prophecy, about the Starks, it was all wrong. The long night isn't coming. It's already here, and Jon? He's no longer fighting against it. He's the last door holding it back. Jon Snow stood on the blackened cliffs of Dragonstone, eyes fixed north, hands burned from obsidian and old magic. He hadn't slept in days. His blood was half fire, half frost. He could hear the dead. Not just their whispers, but their memories. He felt Hodor's last breath. He saw the Craster babies taken in silence. He even saw himself dying at Castle Black over and over. But most of all he heard Bran. We are the Locks. But the Locks had broken, Arya had vanished again. After the siege, she had left a note for Robb, for Sansa. For no one in particular. If you want me, follow the wolves that don't howl. She was already north of the wall, alone, hunting the darkness in its own shadow. The ghost of the North had become more than legend. The dead knew her name. Sansa had stayed in the south, building alliances with what remained of the realm's fractured houses. No one wanted to crown another king. They just wanted to survive, and Robb, he had changed. Winterfell no longer felt like home to him. The godswood whispered things in his sleep. Once he dreamed of Grey Wind speaking in the voice of his father. When your blood turns on itself, you must choose, family or fire. Robb had chosen family. But Jon had become fire. Direct address. Okay, stop, think about this. Jon's not just the last king. He's not even just a man anymore. He's the only living person tied to both ice and fire, and the forces behind both. The White Walkers aren't coming to kill him. They're coming to claim him. Bran sent one last raven. It reached Dragonstone in the beak of a snow-covered crow, its eyes already dead. One sentence. You must come north, or it will come south. Jon didn't wait. He left that night alone. Riding north through frozen rivers and abandoned villages, He saw no one. Not even crows. The world was emptying. He reached Winterfell by dawn. Robb was waiting at the gates. The last time they faced each other, swords had clashed. Now they didn't speak at all, they just hugged, not brothers. Not kings, just two ghosts with the same face. I saw Bran, Jon said. So did I, Robb replied. In the Godswood. He told me to let you through. Jon's face stiffened. Let me through where? Robb pointed beyond the wall. No army, no backup, just you and him. So Jon went. And in the heart of the icy forest beyond the ruined wall he found Bran. But he wasn't sitting anymore. He was standing, and behind him was him, the Night King direct address. Wait, what? Bran and the Night King, together? Oh yeah, this isn't just a battle anymore. This is a reunion. Because what if I told you the Night King wasn't just some ancient evil, but a reflection of the Starks themselves? Bran didn't flinch. The Night King didn't move. Jon stepped forward, hand on Longclaw, eyes narrowed. Bran spoke first. You came because the curse made you, not because you wanted to. I came to stop this, Jon replied. You can't. Why not? Bran turned slowly. Because he is not trying to destroy Westeros. He is trying to restore it. Jon's mouth went dry. What do you mean? Bran stepped aside, and the Night King reached out his hand, not to attack. Not to kill, but to show. Jon saw it all. The creation of the White Walkers. Not as weapons, as guardians. The first men breaking their pacts, burning weirwoods. Forgetting the old gods, the age of heroes ending in silence, not legend. And most horrifying of all, the Starks were never heroes. They were jailers, bound in blood to trap the cold beneath the wall. But once Ned died, and the bloodline began to kill itself, the curse broke, the dead rose, not in hatred. In mourning. They weren't marching to destroy Westeros, they were marching to reclaim it. Jon collapsed to his knees. He looked at Bran. You knew. I saw it in the roots. I begged them to listen. They didn't. Jon looked up at the Night King, and for the first time, he didn't see a monster. He saw purpose, a direct address, and now everything changes. Jon Snow has fought the dead, killed them, led armies to stop them, but now he understands them. And that's more dangerous than any sword. Because what happens when you finally agree with your enemy? Jon stood, and he asked a question that shook the snow off the trees. What do you want? The Night King turned, and in a voice like wind through bones he whispered, balance. Jon looked down at his sword. At his hands, at the scars of war, the burns from fire, the chill in his veins. He nodded and stepped into the dark. Bran stayed behind, watching, waiting, smiling. Robb never saw Jon again. But 3 days later, the sky split open with northern light, and snow began to fall in dawn. It began with silence, not screams, not drums, not war horns echoing across battlements, just stillness. The kind that makes your skin itch. The kind you feel in your teeth. The kind the small folk whisper about in stories but never truly believe. In dawn, flowers withered in full bloom. In the Reach, rivers slowed, their waters turning to slush in mid-autumn. Even Old Town, protected by books, history, and ignorance, felt it. The Maesters stopped writing. Ravens dropped dead in flight. And every man who had ever laughed at tales of the long night found his breath suddenly visible in the warm halls of stone. And in the north, Winterfell closed its gates because he was returning, not as Jon Snow, not as Aegon Targaryen, not even as king, but as something older, something colder, something final. Direct address. All right, this is the end game. Jon Snow isn't a man anymore. He's the last echo of a broken prophecy. A Stark who chose to carry the weight of both fire and death. And now he's coming back, not to conquer, to cleanse. And trust me, no one's safe. Bran vanished the moment the northern lights struck, not fled. Not taken, absorbed. The roots of the weirwood trees turned black, bleeding from the inside. The crows in the Godswood began chanting in unison, balance, 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 before flying into the flames and ending themselves. Sansa sat in the halls of Winterfell with letters she couldn't send. One for Arya, one for Robb, one for Jon. But it was too late. There were no more ravens, no more messengers, only frost. Robb stood on the battlements, watching the blizzard crawl across the horizon. It didn't move like weather. It moved like judgment. He knew Jon was inside it, and whatever came next would rewrite the world. Arya returned that same night, blood on her boots, ice on her breath. She didn't speak when she entered the great hall. She just laid her blade needle at Sansa's feet. "He's not our brother anymore," she said. "He never was," Sansa whispered back. "No, I mean, he's not human." And Sansa understood. This wasn't a war they could win with swords. This was the reckoning of every lie Westeros had ever told itself. Direct address. "Let me just say this straight. This is not your classic final battle. No dragons, no last-minute heroes charging in to save the day. This is about truth. The truth that Ned Stark tried to bury, that Jon tried to run from, that Bran saw and Arya felt and Sansa feared. And now, there's no running. He's coming home." The storm arrived at dawn. Jon appeared in the snow alone. No army, no White Walkers, no undead beasts, just him. Robb descended the wall, sword in hand. He faced Jon in the courtyard. They didn't speak, didn't move, and Jon, pale eyes half blue, voice hollow, finally said, "You were right." Robb tightened his grip. "About what?" "That I should have stayed dead." The wind howled, and then Jon knelt. "I'm not here to fight." Arya stepped out of the shadows, blade in hand. "Then why come at all?" "To end the war." Sansa stepped beside them, voice like frost. "You're the war, Jon." Jon looked up at her, and for a flicker of a moment, he was himself again. I know. He stood and whispered a name, Lyanna. The crypts beneath Winterfell cracked, stones shattered. Ice exploded through the floor, and from below, she rose. Direct address. "Wait, what?" Lyanna Stark just walked out of her own tomb. This isn't a resurrection. This is something worse. This is the past coming for justice. And she's not the only one. One by one, the crypts opened. Ned Stark, Benjen Stark, Rickard Stark, Catelyn, even tiny Rickon, all dead. All risen, but not like whites, not mindless, they remembered. And they looked at Jon like he was both their savior and their curse, because he was the last Stark to break the vow, to take the throne, to spill blood on sacred ground. Sansa screamed. Arya wept. Robb backed away, sword shaking. "What have you done?" he cried. Jon stood in the center of them all, surrounded by ghosts, frost creeping from his feet. "I've given them what the world took." And then, in one breath, he ended it. Not with fire, not with steel, but with silence. The snow stopped falling, the wind died, the light dimmed, and every living person in Winterfell collapsed. Just collapsed, not dead, not hurt, just asleep. All of them except the Starks. Yeah, it happened. Jon just put the entire North to sleep. Not killed, not conquered. He's doing something the Night King never could. He's resetting the world. No rulers, no wars, no houses, just the old blood, the first names, the roots of the North. The dead walked the halls, but they didn't kill, they remembered. They whispered their stories to Jon. He wrote them in blood and ice, into the stones of the castle itself. A history not written in books, but in legacy. And when he finished, he walked into the Godswood and sat, just like Bran had. His eyes rolled back, and he disappeared. Not gone, just absorbed. The weirwood trees across Westeros turned black-veined. The sky never saw the sun again, but the world didn't end. It just changed. Sansa woke up years later, hair white, fingers blue. She never spoke again. Arya vanished across the sea. Her ship turned to ice one morning and was never seen again. Robb remained in Winterfell, ruling over silence, his only court, the dead. And the people? They forgot, because the curse of Ned Stark's honor wasn't that it demanded sacrifice, it was that it refused to die. This is it, the end of the story. Jon Snow didn't win. He didn't lose. He became what no one else could. Both Stark and Targaryen, man and memory, sword and seal. The long night didn't conquer Westeros. It claimed it forever. And now the Godswood stands quiet, the snow never melts, and in the heart of Winterfell, if you listen closely, you can still hear a single breath, waiting, watching, remembering. If you felt that chill just now, it's not your screen. It's the story. And the Starks? They're never really gone, they're just sleeping. Until the next time honor becomes a curse and winter wakes again, fade to black. Wakes again, fade to black.